if you think about one beverage, right, on this planet that has the range to harmonize with the sheer diversity of food that we have on this planet, there's no beverage that can address this array of different flavors, ingredients, and wine. It's truly amazing. Sake can't do it. Beer can't do it. Spirits can't do it, right? Juices can't do it. But this wine made from grapes, it's truly remarkable. I still, every single day when I pair a dish with a wine, I'm still just baffled and humbled every single day, just blown away.
Food and wine pairing is to me one of the most important parts. And I made this as a European. Very often you don't sit down and open bottles of wine and don't eat anything to it, because that goes hand in hand with it, you know. If you travel France, you will see certain style of cuisines there. I call them very often peasant food, you know. If you just have some a pork shoulder, they drink the best wines with it, or even easy wines with it, and it's just tasty good. You don't have to experience necessarily 3 stars in order to feel completely fulfilled.
I love restaurants, I love food, I love the dynamic of a restaurant, I love interacting with guests, and then through that, I fell in love with wine.
Working in a restaurant is very, very tough for one reason, because we have to be consistent. That's what we're struggling nonstop. Look, we human beings believe we are consistent, we are not. Because look, this morning I had a fight with my girlfriend. My mother called me, gave me bad news. I'm hungover, I had a party, whatever. I didn't sleep well. When you hit the restaurant here, it's completely irrelevant. Because the customer comes in here, they want to have a great experience, and they pay a good amount of money.
When I approach the table to guests, when I present the wine, I'm always talking about the food and why the wine was selected with the food. And that tends to put the guests at ease, right? It disarms them. It makes them relax, right? Because we're talking about the food. And guests are very happy to learn always more about the food, where things came from, how things were prepared.
Dishes change. You cannot change your wine list as quickly, or your program as quickly as the chef is able to change his food items or his menus. I'm undergoing through that challenge nonstop. And working with Eric, obviously, I mean, aside of the prestigious effect, is a very challenging component, because he has a very fine way of cooking, or very often he calls it like barely touched or almost raw, but he's very playful in the sauces. That makes it, for me, you know, very, very challenging, because the sauce, and we work with up to 20 sauces. That sauce basically is the driving force, and that sauce can change, you know, within a week. I cannot change my program within a week. That's impossible.
I've worked with chefs before, Ken Frank and Latoque, and he often would make adjustments in his dishes to work with the wine, right? But now, working with Chef Corey Lee, where his vision of the menu is so specific and so planned out, I bring the wine to the food.
For me, I taste nonstop here the sauces, just to see where they are and how can I adjust the pairing to it. The fish, I know, the meat component, I know how they do, because look, a beef does not change as dramatically as a sauce can change.
I don't really think about it at night. Jiro dreams of sushi, Yoon dreams of wine pairing. No, it doesn't, it doesn't happen. But there's a natural curiosity there.
We had, back in the day, a couple of years ago, we had a monkfish dish where I found a great pairing with it, and I think it was a Châteauneuf du Pape, which is not necessarily an obvious choice, but the sauce gave me that access to it. And all of a sudden, we got complaints the dish is salty.
Creating a pairing, it's as rewarding as it is, it's really about the guests and seeing their response to it.
And I noticed, and I tasted it again, and I noticed in the wine pairing, that little touch of tannin made that dish, gave it just that slight touch to it, and it appeared salty. And there was nothing done. You know, the chefs, they were desperate, and they couldn't understand, because the dish wasn't salty at all. It was that little kick to it. So I changed the wine pairing immediately, it was over. It makes 0 sense from a technical handbook standpoint, but that was the turnout.
Currently, let's say there's a dish. There is a beef rib steak. It's been topped with oyster leaf, which tastes just like a raw oyster. Don't ask me how. It's impossible, but it tastes just like a raw oyster, right? It's been topped with jujube, which is a fresh date, right, in its undried form. But kimchi is made from the jujube in lieu of the traditional cabbage, Napa cabbage. And then there's Asian pear, right? So if you look at this dish, you're asking so much from a wine, right? First, you need the authority from the wine to address the beef's deep flavor, right? Number two, you don't really think about oyster when you think about a wine that's powerful and to work with beef, but it's there and you have to deal with it, right? Three, you have kimchi, even though it's made from jujube, so it's gonna have some sweetness, but there's gonna be that fermented, spicy tone. So the wine has to be able to accommodate that. And number four, there's puree of Asian pear, which is going to express some fruitiness, right? So if you think you're asking all that to be accommodated by one wine, it's a Chateau Neuf de Pas, a younger one, a clean one.
I had a pairing down where we had a lobster lasagna just recently with some truffle butter and black truffle to it. And I paired a cider with it from Vulcan, where that slides in the idea, like California Chardonnay, you have a little bit of residual sugar to the lobster and that roundness to it. Then you have the carbonic, the CO2, which brings you freshness, just to brighten up that heaviness of a butter. So just to lift it up, and it was, to me, a perfect pairing. And then chef once sat down with a friend and tasted that dish as well and said, the pairing doesn't work out at all. I said, what? What are you talking about? This is perfect. We tried this several times, and it was fantastic. He said, and I tried then in the kitchen, and I said, it really was terrible. But he taught me something. Nothing is more inconsistent than a truffle. A truffle, once when I tasted it, truffle was in perfect bloom and in perfect flavor. But truffles can also change their flavor. So you pairing, whether I had a perfect before, it wasn't perfect anymore. It was before it elevated, it was really the perfect match. Then they went along with each other, but far from perfect.
Some dishes have an opening for the beverage that's a lot more obvious, and you can just kind of glide right in. And some dishes have an opening that's just a little bit more obscure, and you have to spend more time with those dishes, right? But there is an opening.
When you have scallops, to me, I go traditionally always into either Chablis or into Meursault, because those are, generally speaking, flavors which go along incredibly well.
Eggs are not easy because there's albumin, there's a protein there, and they can cause a reaction with some compounds in the wine and create this kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of a fishiness, if you will. But having said that, I think wine that can avoid that would be maybe a Pinot Blanc, maybe Pinot Gris. You can even do maybe a Riesling, if you will. We can have some fun with tacos because now we're getting to pretty dynamic flavors and textures. We've got that kind of spicy ground beef. If it's a beef taco we're talking about. We've got guacamole, we've got pico de gallo, we've got the cilantro, got some aromatics, and if it's a crispy shell or if it's a soft shell. This is an area where we can have a little bit of fun. I think maybe a wine that is slightly off dry could be a lot of fun too. You know, even like a Cremant d'Alsace, Cremant de la Loire that has a little bit of bubbles.
If you are stuck in a wine pairing and don't know what to do, don't forget champagne. Champagne is an enormous food-friendly style of wine.
I have to agree, champagne is pretty underpaired, right? And I have to say that I'm partly to blame too, because there's a saying. Everyone says champagne goes with everything, right? And I have another opinion about that. I say it goes with everything because champagne doesn't conflict with anything. But for the most part, I don't believe that champagne truly engages a dish because the bubbles, it always maintains a safe distance, right? But it never just like pulls its clothes off and just cannonballs into the pool of a dish.
Very often people come to the restaurant and say, look, I normally drink Sauvignon Blanc, but I want to try to expand my palate a little bit, or I like big and bold wines. What can you offer me here? Which is obviously a challenge if you have poached halibut on the menu. then you need to guide them a little bit. And I think the whole profession slides into that. We eat and drink a lot. I mean, to a certain degree, but we direct people in terms of flavors and food and wine pairings.